Hey guys, in this video we'll be looking at the circulatory system of humans while focusing on the structure and the function of the heart. When we look at anatomical drawings, you have to look at it as left is right and right is left. Now, what do I mean by this? When you are looking at another person, for example, you're looking at me right now, my right will be your left and my left will be your right. This is exactly how we see anatomical pictures. When you look at the picture, right is left and left is right. This is what the heart looks like. This is the structure of the heart. This is the cross section of the heart, which means we've already cut the heart and we're looking at the inside structures. Let's focus on this first. We start with the function of the heart. The function of the heart is, of course, to pump blood to all parts of the body. So we begin on the right side of the heart. Let's start with the first chamber here. So you can see a chamber here. This is called the right atrium. The chamber on top on the right side is called the right atrium. So once the right atrium collects blood, it will contract and it will force the blood to flow through here. So you can see it is going through these flaps here. Now these flaps are valves. This valve is called the tricuspid valve. The tricuspid valve allows blood to only flow from the atrium to the ventricle. So it prevents the backflow of blood. So when you look at the structure, the flap is in this position, which means if blood tries to flow through here, the force will allow it to simply move the flaps and flow through. However, if the blood started to flow the other way around, if it tried to go from the ventricle back into the atrium, what will happen is it will force the valve shut. So the blood will not be able to flow back into the atrium. This is the function of valves. And the tricuspid valve specifically stops the backflow of blood from the chamber at the bottom, which is known as the right ventricle, into the right atrium. So let's move to the right ventricle. The chamber at the bottom here is known as the right ventricle. So once the ventricle collects enough blood, what's going to happen is the ventricle is going to contract. It is going to squeeze the blood, and we already know the blood cannot flow back to the right atrium. So there's only one place that it can go, and that is here. Now as blood is flowing here, you can see we have another valve here. So this valve is known as a semilunar valve because of the shape of the valve. So the function is the same. The valve will only allow blood to flow when it's going up. When the blood is trying to come down this way, it will force the valve shut. So this will prevent the backflow of the blood into the right ventricle. Now where is the blood going from the right ventricle? From the right ventricle, we are going into a blood vessel. Any blood vessel that carries blood away from the heart, out of the heart, away from the heart, is known as an artery. So this is an artery because it is carrying blood away from the heart. And this artery, this particular artery, is going to take the blood from the right ventricle to the lungs. So this is known as anything to do with the lungs, we call it pulmonary. So this is the pulmonary artery. So far, the blood that has been moving in the right side of the heart is deoxygenated blood. Deoxygenated blood simply means the oxygen content of the blood is low. So this deoxygenated blood is being sent to the lungs. Now, we are going to find out why shortly. So where does the blood go? Next, the blood will go to the lungs. When the blood reaches the lungs, what's going to happen is oxygen is going to diffuse into the blood from the lungs. So the lung is going to transfer oxygen into the blood by simple diffusion. At the same time, what's going to happen is carbon dioxide from the blood will go into the lungs. So there is an unloading of carbon dioxide for carbon dioxide to be expelled, and the blood is going to absorb oxygen. So this is the function of going to the lungs. So deoxygenated blood is sent to the lungs basically to refill on oxygen. Once that happens, then the blood is going to flow. Once it has refilled oxygen and unloaded carbon dioxide, it is going to flow back to the heart. So now we are going to go back to the heart. But this time, the blood that is flowing is oxygenated blood because it has already filled up with oxygen. It has a high content of oxygen. Therefore, it is now oxygenated blood. So you can see we have completed one circulation. We've gone from heart to lungs to the heart. Now, this circulation is called the pulmonary circulation. So the pulmonary circulation is the circulation from the heart to the lungs and back to the heart again. Now as the blood enters the heart again, now we have another blood vessel here. So this is a collection of blood vessels on the left and the right side. What is going to happen is it's going to go into, now this is, as you see, it's the right side. So this is the left atrium. The atria are the top two chambers of the heart and the ventricles are the bottom two chambers. As blood enters the left atrium, as blood collects, what's going to happen is the atrium is going to contract. When the atrium contracts, again it forces the blood through here, this way. So once again, you can see we have a valve here. So this valve is known as the bicuspid valve. On the right side of the heart, it is called the tricuspid valve. Right side is right tri, left side is bicuspid. So once the blood has entered the ventricle, so since this ventricle is located on the left side, it is the left ventricle. Once blood enters the left ventricle, it collects there, and then what happens is the left ventricle is going to contract. When the left ventricle contracts, what happens is it forces the blood out again. So where's the blood going to go? So remember, if the blood tries to go back into the left atrium, it is going to apply pressure against the valves in this direction, and what's going to happen is the valves are going to close and prevent blood from flowing back to the atrium. So once again, the function of bicuspid valve is to prevent backflow of blood from the left ventricle to the left atrium. So there's only one place blood can go, and that is here. And then you see more valves. So this is also known as the semilunar valves. So these two, this one and this one, they are known as semilunar valves because of their shape. Both are the same name. Now that the blood goes out of the heart and it enters another blood vessel. So this is the major blood vessel coming out of the heart. This blood vessel supplies blood to all parts of the body except for the lungs. Remember, for the lungs, it was the pulmonary artery. This artery is called the aorta. The aorta is the artery that supplies blood to all parts of the body except for the lungs. So now, on the left side of the heart, as you have seen, we have been carrying oxygenated blood all the while. So on the right side of the heart, we have deoxygenated blood. On the left side of the heart, we have oxygenated blood. So where are we going to carry oxygenated blood? Of course, we are going to deliver the oxygen to all the body cells. So from the aorta, we are going to rest of body. So from here, we go out to all the body cells. At the body cells are going to accept oxygen from the blood. Oxygen is going to diffuse into the body cells. So oxygen goes out of the blood into the body cells. This is how it becomes deoxygenated, because oxygen is moving out of the blood. And after the body cells use the oxygen for cellular respiration, carbon dioxide is one of the products. So carbon dioxide is going to flow into the blood by diffusion. Carbon dioxide goes into the blood. So once this process has taken place, the blood becomes deoxygenated. So we are back to deoxygenated blood, and now we need to fill up on oxygen again. So where do we go? We don't go directly to the lungs. You have to first return to the heart. So we are going back to the heart. So this is through another set of blood vessels. We have two blood vessels here, you can see, leading into the heart, back into the heart, and they are called the superior vena cava, and we also have the inferior vena cava. Superior vena cava brings blood from the top portion of the body back into the right atrium, whereas the inferior vena cava brings blood from the bottom part of the body back into the atrium as well. So all the deoxygenated blood goes back into the atrium and the cycle repeats. So now from the atrium we have deoxygenated blood, we need to fill it up with oxygen again, so the heart will send it to the lungs again and the cycle repeats. So this is another circulation. From heart to body cells back to heart. This is a second circulation, and this circulation is called the systemic circulation. So the systemic circulation is heart, body cells, heart, whereas the pulmonary circulation is heart, lungs, and back to heart. As you can see here, human beings have two circulations. So the circulatory system in human beings is known as a double circulatory system because there are two circulations. The pulmonary circulation as well as the systemic circulation. And since blood is carried in vessels, they are enclosed in vessels, it is known as a closed circulatory system as well. Let's look at a couple more things. If you see here, at the center, you have an important part that separates the left side from the right side. So remember, on the right side of the heart, we have deoxygenated blood. On the left side, we have oxygenated blood. They cannot mix. So the septum, this is known as the septum. The septum is what separates the two ventricles, which effectively separates the deoxygenated blood from the oxygenated blood. And another thing to notice is, if you look at this side of the heart, the left ventricle wall is very thick. It is a muscular wall, so it's a very thick muscular wall. What is the function of this? We have to remember the left ventricle is the one that pumps blood to all parts of the body other than the lungs. In order to achieve that, it has a very thick wall. So we've looked at the cross section of the heart. Now we haven't seen what are the vessels that supply blood to the heart itself, because the heart itself also requires nutrients and oxygen in order to function. So the blood vessels that supply the blood to the heart itself is located on the surface of the heart. It is not inside. You cannot see it in the cross section. It is on the surface, and it is known as the coronary arteries. Coronary arteries supply blood to the heart. Some major heart disease are linked to problems with the coronary artery, but I'll cover that in a different video. If you've learned something from this video, guys, please do me a favor and just tap that like button. Thank you very much for doing that. It really does help. And if you enjoy a video like this, do subscribe, because I'll be producing at least one video a week. I'll see you guys in the next video.